Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Lasali Nungu, aka Sal, and I want to thank you so much for joining me back again for the podcast. All of my new listeners too. I see you guys really love the first two, so I hope this third one is another one to match. You guys know what it is. We're going to take a brief break. I'm going to show you some of my offers. We'll be right back and we're going to jump right into it. Stay tuned. Don't move a muscle.
For years, I ran and ran and ran. I struggled for years with bad credit, bouncing from different prepaid cards just to avoid collections and judgments that were ruining my life. My low credit score got me denied jobs in government and any job having to do with money. Things got so bad, I was denied an apartment and even an iPhone. I knew I had to take some bold action. I decided I was going to fight back. I learned about federal laws people like me can use to dispute illegal and inaccurate accounts and get judgments removed. I created powerful credit dispute letters that challenged everything, and I wasn't afraid to take a creditor to court if I had to. It took time for things to get better, but I was able to raise my score over 400 points, and I'm here to tell you that you can do it too. Get my powerful credit dispute letters at fightyourscore.com. That's fightyourscore.com, so you too can stop running.
My boyfriend struggled for years with unemployment. In and out of jobs, he couldn't find stability. Things got so hard, we even thought about moving in with his mother and getting on state welfare. But through the drama, I stuck by him because I loved him and he loved me. Then one day while surfing the internet, he discovered MillionaireTradingAcademy.com. With as little as $200 and a desire to learn, MillionaireTradingAcademy.com taught him day trading as business. No employees, no inventory, no license or credit required. He studied day and night, and things worked out, and everything about him has changed. He's even more confident, happier, and laughs a lot more. He even decided to go to school online and get a degree in business. It feels so good to have a man who can provide for you. Safe to say, he's my husband now. We bought new cars and a new home. But besides all the material things, I am so proud of him. If you know a man who could use a life-changing moment, tell them to go to MillionaireTradingAcademy.com. A better life is waiting.
Black Box Stocks is an automated trading system that delivers real-time market alerts using a proprietary algorithm. Our system is composed of high-speed servers monitoring over 13,000 NASDAQ, NYSE, Amex, and OTC stocks at the same time, analyzing each tick multiple times per second. This award-winning system levels the playing field by offering you technology that has too often been reserved for large financial firms, hedge funds, and the Wall Street elite. And when it comes to the results, let's just say that they are really, really good. Don't wait any longer. Visit blackboxtrader.org to start generating big gains right now.
And welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you take advantage of one of those offers that you just listened to. We're going to jump right into it. And I want to say that I come from a very honest place in this discussion. I have a lot of respect for the Jewish community, but I'm also a very honest person if you've been listening to my podcast for a while. And I want to start off by saying that this podcast is not starting or coming from a place of any kind of negativity. I'm not coming from a place of any kind of unusual or weird adoration for the community or anything like that. We're just trying to be honest about how there are certain behaviors within the Jewish community that have made them and propelled them to be a very successful people globally, right? And these are some traits, these are some behaviors that we as quote unquote Gentiles can mimic in our own lives to make our communities and our families better. So I also want to make that loud and clear for everybody who's watching. The Black and the Jewish community have had a very conflicting relationship. I wouldn't say there is any relationship as we speak here in December of 2019, and that's for a lot of reasons. But we can go back to days prior to the civil rights movement, and what we see is that you have Jewish people starting organizations for the benefits of helping Black Americans. In fact, the NAACP was created by a Jewish man. He actually ended up leading the organization several years later into its heyday when the NAACP became the preeminent law organization in the world, basically. So a lot of the incredible laws and rights we have in this country, believe it or not, were financed, right, by Jewish people who got behind very incredible and intelligent Black lawyers and put them in the position to be able to challenge the United States government to allow us to have the freedoms we have today. So we are eternally grateful for those people who stood up to make that happen. But we also have to be honest about some of the other unfortunate things that have happened between Jews and Black people. One of them is the fact that in the late 80s, there was a situation where a Jewish man ran over a Black child. Many people say that was deliberate, and this caused the Crown Heights riots. The Crown Heights riots was started by what many people say was an act of racism from a Jewish American. In the 1970s or 60s, I can't remember exactly, and the internet's basically been scrubbed of this incident, but there was a small Jewish band of like 5 or 6 men who killed a man. I mean, like literally threw rocks and killed him. Somebody knows what the name of this situation is. I have saw the page on Wikipedia, but I did not save it. And I'm having a hard time getting the name of it. But somebody who's listening to my voice right now, you know the name of this incident. The internet's been basically scrubbed of this incident. And not many people know about it, but it was a small Jewish gang of young teens who basically found a Black person and killed them because he was Black. So again, we've had very conflicting history, but at the end of the day, there is been, well, at one time was an attachment. We can also add that Marcus Garvey, for example. Marcus Garvey actually stood up for the Jewish community and his time in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where he basically called the Jewish people diamonds. I mean, he basically, his UNIA program, independent program fostering Black economic empowerment, was built off the culture of the Jewish people, right? Independence, striving to be one's own provider and be self-sufficient. Marcus Garvey's entire platform was mimicking what the Jewish community was already doing and had been doing for generations. So let's begin the conversation about the 7 lessons that Jewish people take advantage of and implement in their own lives to make themselves great. First and foremost, number 1, Jewish people understand that real wealth is portable. They understand that real wealth belongs in knowledge. Jewish people invest in education more than any other group by far. One thing you have to understand is that as we speaking today, nearly 80% of Jewish men in America have some kind of college education. Whether they finished or not isn't important. What we do know is that whatever it is that they pursue, Jewish men pursue education with the mindset of being able to be either a professional at that craft or to go into business at that craft for themselves. Jewish people do not go into education, go into any field with the idea of working for someone else. They are always seeking to go into fields that have high earning ability. They are very structured in their families for achievements on higher level. They've got to go to the best schools. They've got to go to, the best of everything, whatever it is. They've got to do it, and they've got to do their best at it because their religion speaks to doing their best. Their religion preaches that they should go in anything that they pursue, that they should put it in all of their heart. All of their effort should be into that particular act. Let me read these very interesting statistics so you can get even more detailed picture of how incredible the Jewish advantage in economic status really is. Jewish Americans only make up 2% of America's population, but they make over 40% of the Forbes 400 wealthiest people in the world. They make 1/3 of all American multimillionaires are Jewish. Well over 40% of professors at leading universities are Jewish. 40% of the partners in leading law firms in New York and Washington are Jewish. Also, 30% of America's Nobel Prize winners in science are Jewish, which is absolutely incredible. So let's dig a little deeper here. Who and what exactly are Jews? Unlike many religions, Judaism is more than simply a belief system that anybody can adopt. To become Jewish means enlisting in the tribe. The relationship or covenant is between God and the Jewish people rather than between God and individual Jews. Judaism is a religion with a very strong ancestral component, right? So those who have to or who wish to convert have to study and pass through a local rabbi's approval process. You can't just decide, hey, I'm going to become Jewish, or hey, I'm a Jew. You just cannot do that. Only children of Jewish mothers are automatically considered Jewish. So through the woman is where the Jewish lineage is transferred. Although some in kind of reformist congregations, they do use the father side as well. So it is required that both mother and father be Jewish in order for that person to be considered a Jew. Now, again, that's on the reformist side of, these group of people. But, have other groups that have some other formal conversion as well. Now, the state of Israel, in applying the law of return, which is basically a rule that says, hey, the state of Israel is here. Anybody in the world who is looking to come and find their home can come into the state of Israel. And that law of return makes any Jew automatically an Israeli citizen if he or she returns to the Holy Land. And it defines Jews very, very broadly, but it only recognizes those who have fully converted to Judaism performed by an Orthodox rabbi. So it's very, very important that you follow those tenets if this is something you want to pursue. In doing some research for this video, I found out that Sammy Davis Jr., after he had a serious car accident, became Jewish. He actually went through the process and was approved by an Orthodox rabbi as a convert into Judaism. So we have black celebrities who have gone about and become Jewish. There was also recently an NBA basketball player, I forgot his name, played for the New York Knicks, recently retired. He too became a converted Jew and actually ended up moving to Israel. He actually lives in Israel now. So there has been a history of African Americans, black Americans becoming Jewish. You also have very interesting fringe groups, black Hebrew Israelites, who practice a form of Judaism that many consider to be extreme. They've been accused of doing a lot of things. You're going to hear a lot about them out there in the world, but for the most part, they're peaceful people, but they do bridge on the eccentric a bit and can get a bit wild. But those people are not considered to be true Jews. They're not considered to be the quote-unquote children of Israel. Gaining knowledge for knowledge's sake is a core Jewish value. In fact, for centuries, Jews have been referred to as the people of the book. Jews bury religious books that have become worn with age or any use as a sign of respect for their contents and for that written word, for the passion that they have for that written word. From a very young age, Jewish people celebrate education. They're very well known to have a first name basis with their rabbis. They are very well known to travel throughout the country to learn from other rabbis, even as very young people. In fact, when Jewish people who attend Jewish universities, for example, Yeshiva University in New York, which is a Jewish university, many of them, well over 90% of their graduates who are Jewish, will go to Israel, spend a year learning from the Torah, which is their Bible, right? There's the Torah and then there's the Talmud. The Torah is basically their Bible. The Talmud is basically a book that has many popular and incredibly well-known rabbis to their group speaking about the Torah, also a lot of history. I mean, this is a religion that is well over 3,000 years old. So there's a lot of ancient Jewish knowledge that are in these two books that men strive to become masters at understanding. In fact, they have something called Torah study, which is basically the highest esteem that any Jewish man can strive to want to achieve. In fact, Torah study is so important to their religion that the word in the Torah says that, Torah study is more beneficial or is looked at more righteous to God than 1,000 sacrifices, right? So like any other culture, they sacrificed animals for certain events or to show grace or show mercy. So more than 1,000 sacrifices, God would rather see you study from your Torah if you are a Jewish man. So it's very important for men to do that. There is no particular time amount, but every Jewish man strives to at least read his Torah an hour a day. Now, which is really interesting because you have Jews who practice the religion really overtly, and then you have other Jews who respect their culture, of course, respect their lineage, but don't practice it. But even then, you'll notice that Jewish people who follow their religion, they're far more successful than any other groups. And Jewish people who don't follow, but again, respect their lineage, they're still more successful than people who don't practice the ancient Jewish code, the ancient Jewish, lineage and history, because they understand, again, the ancient rules of success, of knowledge, of money. So even though they may not read their book all the time, even though they may not go to the synagogue, they still understand the rules and the regulations that they need to follow to become successful and become self-sufficient. They still strive to become independent people within the community. What I really want to get out of your head is the idea that Jewish people are some kind of cabal, right? That they're kind of this one group where somebody can just call up somebody else and say, hey, give me $1 million, and they just get it. It doesn't work like that. Each Jew is a leader unto themselves. So the Jewish community doesn't have a, quote, leader, right? Unlike some other groups, for example, the black community in America, in the past, we have subscribed leaders as people to speak for our group. The Jewish community does not have that. Each individual Jew is a leader unto him or herself. During an expulsion of Jews sometime in the late 1870s, 1880s, there was a sudden migration of a few thousand Jews to the United States. And in 1884, there was a very honest effort by the United States to provide industrial education to poor Jewish immigrant boys who had came in from Eastern Europe. In fact, it was called the Hebrew Technical Institute of New York City, and it was founded by the help of a little bit of government money and some German Jews with the best of intentions. However, it was quickly rejected by those immigrants. They actually looked down on manufacturing or labor type of work. In fact, Jewish people look down on carpentry, right? Because what happens is that Jewish people who do that kind of work, they always want more for their children. So if you have a Jewish person who is doing work with their hands that is intensive labor, more than likely they don't want to see their child doing the same thing. So if dad is a factory worker, he wants his son to be a doctor. He wants his son to be a scientist. He's not interested in seeing his son doing manual labor like he has to do. So there's no joy, there's no satisfaction in a Jewish parent to see their child doing manual labor. They want to do labor that regards having to do with the mind. They love mind power. work that is pleasing to God is work that requires a lot of mental fortitude. That's where they see pleasure in pleasing their God. Now, these are 6 rules that Jewish people have for their child. I'm not going to break each of one of them down. It's kind of self-explanatory, but it does a really great job of letting you know the expectations that Jewish have for their children that leads them into adulthood to become the successful people they are. Number 1, they believe in building their child's self-esteem early, particularly between the ages of 3 and 7. Intensive study. And I'm not talking kids' books either. They're putting their children in front of the Torah in the same way that an adult would read it. So the same words. In fact, many of them are also putting it in Hebrew. So again, they don't dummy things down for their children. Number 2, they build the ability to defer gratification. You will not find a Jewish child with many material things. It's very important for them to teach their children to defer any sort of gratification. Number 3, they make it a point to choose the best education possible for their children. Jewish people will spend thousands of dollars to educate their child. Number 4, develop and demonstrate informed and literate habits. Jewish people will spend hundreds, thousands of hours to make sure that their child has the best, not only education, but reading and speaking habits and ability. Number 5, create the education expectation. Jewish children are taught very early to understand that they are going to go all the way when it comes to their education. You will become a PhD. You will become a doctor. You will become a PsyD or whatever it is. They're trained to go all the way and to know that they're going to all the way from the day they're born. Number 6, focus on keeping skills up to date. Jewish people love continued seeking of knowledge. Even after someone has achieved the highest levels of education, you will many times follow and see Jewish people continuing to seek even more education. They will write other books, attend seminars, attend other events and speaking engagements to learn more about their chosen field. They're continually seeking more education. Now let's move on to the number 2 reason why Jewish people are so successful. They believe in taking care of their own. Jews zealously deploy their wealth and their time in both charity and social action. The numbers are absolutely incredible when you talk about how small this population is compared to how much money they give. We right now have Michael Bloomberg running for president. Now, he's not going to win. And what a lot of people are not going to tell you is that Michael Bloomberg, a billionaire, has donated over $6 billion to educational foundations and events worldwide, but particularly to the Black community. So how crazy is that? Mr. Stop and Frisk himself has donated billions of dollars to organizations that help underprivileged Black youth especially. So you've got some Black people out here who are walking around with college degrees that were provided by Michael Bloomberg. That's crazy. See, in the Talmud, they believe that you're only as wealthy as the amount that you're able to give. In the Jewish community as a whole, Jews have made giving a priority. In fact, in the book Leviticus, it's even more explicit. It says, you are forbidden to reap the whole harvest. A remnant of the corner must be left for the poor. You know, Jews understand that when the community can serve itself, it controls its own destiny. Jews, have a proverb. It says, he who pays has the say. Jews understand that if they help each other, build each other up as a community, that this provides the self-sufficiency that they need to protect themselves from government that tries to harm them, kings, or whatever it is that may come up. They will have the necessary ability to defend themselves. 70% of the Jewish community lives in only 5 states, but in every single Jewish community, there always is a local Jewish assistance agency. In fact, according to the Talmud, a righteous scholar may not live in any town that does not operate a fund for charity. So this is a local Jewish assistance agency whose main job is to provide for Jewish people that are in need. When immigrants from poor countries come into the United States, these organizations band together to help provide assistance to these Jews to get on their feet. Now, I want to make it very clear that Jewish people don't believe in just giving money to give money. They believe in putting people in the position to help themselves. So I want you to think about these as not as assistance agencies, but self-help institutions. Jewish people will only help you to the point where you can become able-bodied to help yourself. So they're not interested in providing money to people just for the sake of giving money. They want to provide to something that will lead to a result. So they are result-oriented givers, and they make sure that if they're giving money to your organization, if you want to continue to see money coming in, then you're going to have to provide results. You're going to have to show that, yes, the money that they're giving you is being turned around and put into people that are eventually becoming self-sufficient. So you'll see them giving a lot to organizations that are about getting people back into the workforce from, let's say, years of drug use, or getting people to finish school or something like that. They're result-oriented givers. Now, going back to the Jewish assistance groups, those groups at one time did provide funding to individuals who were non-Jews. But in the early 80s and early 90s, what happened was you had a lot of people, again, who weren't Jews, who were abusing the system. And default rates got so high, you had other Jewish organizations that had to save each other. So they then eventually banned the ability to give money to non-Jews. So now those Jewish local organizations are only giving money to each other. Not saying that they're not giving money to other people independently, but Jewish assistance agencies are now only helping Jewish people. But again, they were for a very long time helping non-Jews. But because non-Jews, again, did not abide by the laws that they have, they decided to no longer support non-Jewish people because they weren't paying the money back. And that's fair enough to, for them to do. So when it comes to this particular part of this lesson, I want you to understand how important it is to give to something meaningful, because they believe in the spirit of giving, that giving is spiritual, and that there's a supernatural power that God will provide necessary means to you to continue to provide for his children. Understand that Jewish people are wealthy because they believe in providing for God's children. So as they provide their knowledge, they provide their funds, God continues to reverse that power back into the Jewish people for them to continue to be givers. So the Jewish people are basically the hands and feet of God walking through the earth. That's how they see themselves. They are going to continue to work through God's blessing, and God's blessing is going to continue to work through them. That is why other groups of people around the world are poor. They're not interested in helping other people. They're only interested in helping themselves. And because of that, they don't have God's blessing. That's why they're poor, because they don't help each other to advance in the world. So you can clearly see how this is an incredible opportunity that if a certain group in America would just come together and find ways to either individually or come as a group, decide to help each other, find ways to provide more services, more goods to help each other, then the flow, that spirit of capital can come through you as an individual or the group as a whole and create the kind of wealth necessary to become a self-sufficient people. Number 3, Jewish people see opportunities for entrepreneurship in every line of work that they pursue. Even when pursuing fields like medicine and law, these two professions often lead to private practice. So please don't believe that just because a Jewish person is pursuing the ability to be a doctor, that they want to work for a hospital. In fact, many times they don't. They actually want to go into private practice for themselves. In general, American Jews have nearly 3 times the rate of self-employment than other groups in the United States. And that's the same levels you'll find in Great Britain, across Europe, and across the very small populations in Asia or even South America. You'll find the Jewish populations in those countries always pursuing self-actualization through entrepreneurship. This entrepreneurial drive is crucial to Jewish success. 80% of millionaires in the United States are self-made. They did not inherit their wealth. Let me say that again. 80% of all millionaires in America are self-made and did not inherit their wealth. So if you're looking to become a millionaire, more than likely, you've got to create your own business, and Jewish people understand that. Now, what gives rise to these levels of entrepreneurship in the Jewish community? One, running your own business appeals to these people because they believe in controlling their own destiny. They don't want to be subject to bigotry of an employer because historically, their people have been subject to thousands of years of bigotry. And this is knowledge that, again, they've passed down to each other to understand that, hey, if we want to be self-sufficient people, if we're going to end up getting kicked out or oppressed or something like that, we want to be able to take care of ourselves and each other. So Jews were, for the most part, shut out of traditional old line industries, right? Like insurance and automobiles, steel, coal, chemicals, heavy machinery. These were jobs that when Jewish people arrived to this country or in Europe, they were shut out of. If I can go even further back, when Jews were expelled out of their land, they were then spread across lands that had already had kings, already had poor people in those lands. And when the Jewish people showed up, the poor people wouldn't do business with the Jews. And then, of course, the kings and queens of those lands would not hire the Jews to serve them. So the Jewish people did only what they knew best, use their knowledge to grow and service industries to help each other. What happened is that the Jewish community got so successful, they eventually became the money lenders to the very people that were originally trying to oppress them. So that is how Jewish community and Jewish people became so successful at finance. And that's why you have all this bigotry and jealousy, particularly when it comes to the financial space and the Jewish community. But we have to remember, if we understand the history, that these were actually oppressed people and were pushed into the field, not because they wanted to become financiers, is because they were pushed into that field, right? They became so successful at doing their own business that eventually, with the amount of money they made, they could then lend to non-Jewish people and become the money lenders that we know of today. Before I tell you this well-known quote in Jewish business circles, let me first describe what a Gentile is. A Gentile is somebody who's not a Jew. So here's how the joke goes. A Gentile works a job so that he can get a key to the men's room. A Jew works a job so that he can get a key to the vault. So understand in this joke, the vault refers to the wealth of knowledge about how the business operates. It's not the money. So a Jew will get in a line of business just to learn how it works, but then will eventually quit to start the exact business on his own. One topic I could not avoid in making this lesson is Jews and real estate. See, for a long time, Jewish people stayed and shied away from real estate because, again, historically, their people had been expelled out of so many different lands that they really shied away from fixed investments because of those many expulsions. But real estate over the last 1,000 years have been too powerful a magnet. So Jews really had to be smart, quick, and facile. And as their numbers grew, particularly in the United States of America and Europe, they started looking at real estate as an opportunity for themselves and their family to build wealth. Another attractive aspect for real estate for them was the impersonal marketing that it required. See, unlike many other fields where you may have to stand in front of a person in order to sell. Jewish people realized in order to sell property, many times they didn't actually have to be present, right? They can put an ad in the paper or hire somebody else to go and do the actual selling, even though the title and the deeds and everything else was in their name. Again, this is a group that has always faced significant amount of discrimination. So to be able to be in a business where you can hire someone to do the kind of legwork, but still take the ownership and the majority of the pie was really lucrative and attractive for them. In the real estate industry, it is said that what's lacking is not money, but ideas. And the thing about the Jewish people, again, is that they are a very learned society. So they were able to bring in significant amount of ideas and new ways of investing and trading when it comes to real estate. So the idea of the brokerage, the idea of Levitt towns and these were all brought to the United States of America by the brainpower of the Jewish community. We can spend an entire hour talking about how the Jewish community affected the hotel industry in the United States of America. The Four Seasons hotel chain was created by a Jewish man. Just shopping malls across the country began by Jewish families. The Real Estate Investment Trust was created by a Jewish man. Starwood Hotels and Resorts, those are now owned and were created by Jewish communities. The W Hotels, Caesars World Casinos, Dora Hotels, Westin Hotels, Sheraton. These are hundreds, thousands of rooms that were created and managed by the Jewish community. The fourth reason why Jewish people are so successful. Jewish people believe in building verbal self-confidence. They believe that a large percentage of business success depends on developing what they call chutzpah. See, chutzpah basically describes itself as verbal self-confidence. Literally, that's what it means. It's the ability to speak up, to say your piece, to ask questions, to make demands, to, demand what's really due, defy a tradition, to challenge authority, to raise eyebrows, but not for the sake of just trying to get attention, but to get something done. Jewish people are all about putting themselves in positions to become successful. So you will never see a Jewish person, being bold or assertive just to be loud and assertive. They are doing that in order to make an end, to create a result that they believe is going to benefit them in the long run or immediately. See, unlike Christianity, where the approach is basically to believe one's religious doctrine without a great deal of critical debate, Jewish people are always debating their own religion. So the study of the Torah involves a lot of individual readings and then group discussions about the stories and the laws that they're reading. So it's not about memorizing the actual quotes. It's not about reciting them over and over again. This is about serious critical review and intensive, let me say that again, intensive questioning and debate about what they're reading. You can see these videos online, particularly among young Jewish people or even elders, where they're constantly debating what they're reading and what the writer was actually trying to say. And this can go on for hours and hours and hours, where they're basically, egging each other on to be able to develop a conscious point that they can address the people with. So Jewish people are always refining, like a sword, their ability to communicate. And that's why you will find that many Jewish children will read at grade levels far above other ethnic groups. You will find that older Jewish men and women are very well sane into their early 80s or 90s, well above many other groups where you may see a decline in mental ability. You won't find that in many older Jewish people because, again, they're constantly reading, constantly refining their ability to learn. Number 5, Jewish people believe in being selectively extravagant, but very prudently frugal. You will not find many Jews who are very materialistic. You won't find that in young Jewish people. In fact, they shun on the idea of wearing many expensive jewelry or expensive clothes. That's not something that's very big in their culture. They will spend money doing things like going to Israel, taking the whole family to Israel, going to study at a university or going to study in Israel. They will spend money doing that, but they will not spend money buying material things. They do not show any kind of favoritism to particular brands or anything like that. In fact, in the United States of America and in Europe, you've had brands that have worked against the Jewish people, right? For example, Mercedes-Benz. You will never see a Jew driving a Mercedes-Benz because Mercedes-Benz actually worked on the side of the Nazis. You also may not find Jewish people going to Disney World, right? Because Walt Disney was involved with the Nazis for a long time. You also may not find Jewish people driving Fords. Henry Ford himself was a hardcore, Nazi sympathizer for a long time and someone who was incredibly anti-Semitic. So you'll see a lot of Jewish people who won't support him by driving his cars either. So every Jew is not necessarily a rag to riches story, but what Jewish people do is that they understand the power of compound interest. So to accumulate wealth, they've learned how to save and invest incredibly wisely. Jewish people are focused and are built, and taught to learn how to invest in a very smart way to accumulate wealth in their professional pursuits as life goes on, and then pass that wealth on to their children. So they understand how dangerous reckless spending can be to their bank accounts. So many times you've probably heard these ideas of Jewish people being cheap and always looking for deals and stuff like that, always trying to haggle and things like that. Again, that's just them being incredibly smart, but many other ethnic groups have been openly hostile to Jewish people in times when they felt like they were trying to get over or not. That's just their culture, trying to look for ways to get a good deal and not spend a lot of money. But other ethnic groups may take offense to that in certain situations. One interesting spending habit that Jewish people have is they spend quite a bit of money on hardcover books. The publishing industry, in fact, calls Jews the cornerstone of hard book sales in the United States of America. When Jewish people buy books, they buy the hardback versions, which also happen to be the most expensive editions of any book, because they believe that they are going to, keep the book for a lifetime and then also pass it on to friends, family, and even their children. Jews, Time magazine found, they exceed any use of shelf space than any other group when it comes to books. When you go into a Jewish family's home, you will find shelves and shelves of books and books and books. People have also found in studies that the amount of books does have a correlation to the amount of wealth that may be found in that home. 70% of Jewish homes have reported to buy a hardcover book in the past 12 months. That's compared to less than 10% of the general population. So 7 out of 10 Jewish people have bought a hardcover book in the last 12 months. They understand the value of knowledge and how that translates into the incredible building of wealth. Number 6, Jewish people celebrate individuality and encourage creativity. Jewish people don't believe in having a leader. They don't believe in someone speaking out for all Jewish people. The Bible leads Jews to believe that they have a right, a mission to be different. The Bible says that Jews are the chosen people. I choose you not because you are more numerous or powerful, and not because you are morally or spiritually, superior. You are not. I choose you out of my own unknowable will. That is Deuteronomy 7:7. So God chose the Jewish people. Again, he's not saying that the Jewish people are smarter than anyone else. God is not saying that they're morally better than anybody else. He chose them because he felt that they were the chosen group that would follow his word. And sure enough, out of all the ethnic groups in the world, for the most part, The math is very clear. The Jewish people are following his word, reading his word, and it is translating in actual physical wealth for their people. Judaism sets up a framework that permits Jews to act and think differently. As part of their religious education, I want you to know that Jewish children learn Hebrew at a very early age. And Hebrew is a language that's read backwards from right to left and has a completely different and unique alphabet system. That sense of difference, that sense of individuality and kind of separateness has been a source of very great power and self-esteem for the Jewish people, right? The Jewish people wish to raise independent children, right? And that begins really at birth when the name is chosen. So Jewish people don't believe in junior. So you'll never see a Thomas James Jr., or Thomas James the third, the fourth, that you may see in many other cultures. I can name a few juniors in the black community, which is ridiculous coming from the eyes of Jewish people, right? They would see that as ridiculous because Jewish people believe that naming a child after his father is very superstitious to them because it robs that living relative of a full life, that the child will not be able to feel that they can be themselves, that they have to somehow live up to the life of the father or whoever they're named after. And the final reason why Jewish people are so successful is that Jewish people believe that they control their own destinies. See, Jewish people have experienced some of the worst catastrophes the world has ever seen. I mean, millions of Jews have been killed throughout history by different groups of people, but they don't see themselves as victims. They see themselves as survivors. In fact, you will never hear a Jewish person call themselves a victim of the Holocaust. It's always Holocaust survivor. So they never see themselves as victims. Every time they describe some of the horrific events that they've gone through, it's always from the point of view of a survivor. We went through this, we conquered it, we went through it, and here we are now. Jewish people truly believe that, again, they control their own destiny. After 40 minutes of discussion, I want to thank you for continuing to listen. I know you're going to take the lessons you learned in this video and apply them to your own life to make you and your family better. Continue to strive for self-entrepreneurship and for self-actualization that improves your ability to be self-sufficient. It's so funny that in researching this video, I came across many Jewish people who honestly believe that some of the founding members of their lineage were black. Yet, how come in this world today, black people are the poorest ethnic group in the world? Because we've refused to listen and adhere to the ancient Jewish knowledge that people who look like us created. How sad. I want to thank you again for listening. Please click subscribe and stay tuned for more podcasts to come. Take care.